First of all, I would like to pay my high respect to my teacher and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm so very happy to be here and we are the last group of the chapter 11 and today we present about sex and gender. So let's move on to the next part is our team member. We have 5 members. The first one, Pampanyapik, me, second, Lingwachaka, third, Livantay, fourth, Tujaravatay, fifth, Bongkian. So let's move on to our content. We have 5 main points. The first one, gender inequality in the workplace. Second, gender and violence. Third, the changing face of the politics. Fourth, glimpsing the future with hope. And the last but not least is recap. So let's move on to my first point is about the gender inequality in the workplace. Before we get started, I have two key points related to the pay gap. The first one is gender inequality. What is gender inequality? Gender inequality refers to the unequal treatment or the perceptions of an individual based on their gender. So the first thing that pop up in everyone's mind are women. And we already know that men are the ones that usually have the most powerful positions in the workplace than women. Not only in the workplace, but also in family, men become a breadwinner, and also in the group, men become a leader, and so on. And another second key term is about gender pay gap. What is gender pay gap? Gender pay gap is the difference between the average earning of the women and men in the workforce. Let's move on to my next point is about men proportion of the U.S. labor. So as you can see, we have the line graph illustrate one of the chief characteristics of the U.S. workforce. Its steady growth in the number of the women who work for the wage outside the house. So in 1890, one of the every 5 paid workers was a woman. And by 1940, this data have grown to 1 of 4, and by 1960 to 1 of 3, and today it's almost 1 of 2. So as shown on the line graph, the projections are the data will remain 55% men and 45% women for the next few years. So let's move on to our next point is about the gender gap. But before we move on, I have one question related to boy. So girls, just stay still and listen. The question is, do you think that you are lucky to be born as a man? So alright, the answer is already shown on the slide. You can see it about the bar chart. The bar chart represents the amount of the money which earned from the gender pay gap by all levels of education. As you can see in the line in the bar chart, we have 6 levels. The first one, average of all workers. Second, high school dropout. Third, high school graduate. Fourth, some college no degree. Fifth, associate degree. And the last one is college graduate. And overall, the men earn more money than women. According to the bar chart, I will talk about the difference between high school dropout and the college graduate. So let's take a look on the high school dropout. Men earn about $33,000 on this opposed to the women at $22,000 per year. And however, the amount of the money that earned by the men college graduate was dramatically increased, about $94,000, whereas women can earn approximately $6,000 per year. So we can assume that if the gender inequality doesn't have in the workplace, it won't be have gender discriminations. So let's move on to my last point is about the gender gap over time. The pay gap is so great that the U.S. women who work full-time average only 70% of what the men are paid. As you can see in the line graph, the pay gap used to be even worse. Why? Because the gender gap is pay occurs not only in the US, but it also in all industrialized nations. And we can evaluate that women aren't more educated, but men are more employed and they can earn a lot of money than women. So that's all of my points. Let's move on to the next point is presented by Vichika. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Panyapet. So let's move on to my point, the cracking glass ceiling. As you have known that in the past, women are not allowed to go out and work like a man. They have to stay at house taking care of the children and doing housework. But now women have a chance to decide either being an employee or housewife. Although they have a chance to earn money like a man, they still face some problem that cannot reaching a high position. This is called glass ceiling. So, what does glass ceiling mean? Next slide, please. Glass ceiling means the attitude in organization that prevent women from reaching beyond a certain level, despite having the necessary skill and ability. As we talk about glass ceiling, I would like to bring another vocabulary that relate to it. It's glass cliff. Glass cliff refers to the fact that women are commonly promoted to be leadership in certain industries during time of crisis or downturn, therefore set up for failure. So what keeps women from breaking through this glass ceiling? The reasons are lack mentor, negative stereotype, a notion that it is risky for women to work in high position. So how can we deal with it? Next slide, please. Firstly, avoid glass cliff. Women are less likely to be promoted to be leader because the company owners think that they will be blamed for putting women in high position if they get into trouble. However, when an organization is in crisis, women are often seen as being able to come in and take care of this problem. This is because companies don't want to risk the loss of people who they believe to be the most valuable. They are more likely to disqualify employees who they perceive as less valuable, according to CEO of Pinsight and author Martin Link. Second, strengthen your network of co-workers. Women should build strong relationships with people in leadership positions because you will gain support by introducing to new opportunities. Notice that if your leaders are men, you shouldn't care about gender, that I am woman. It is not good to talk to men. I will get the same. Because you are just talking about work. We don't do anything wrong, so don't be afraid. Another reason that we should make relationship with them is advice. We can ask them for advice in order to develop our education to be better, so that we have a higher chance to perceive that position. Because they have got so many problems than us, so they have more experience. Like who said, I have had mentors my entire career, some more formal than others, and I think it is valuable. They help me to reach out my goal easier. Therefore, you can start it by talking to each other at workplace, going out, having a meeting. And we also can connect with each other via phone, email, social media. So talk with them, even they have changed the workplace. Third, advocate yourself. Advocate for yourself means that you are able to recognize your worth and assume the responsibility of clearly communicating your need, goal, and desire to others. It is important to advocate yourself because it can raise awareness of the problem you face, fast-track career advancement, and to ensure your rights are violated. It's important to speak up for yourself and let people know what you need from them to succeed. As an example, my Lynn wanted to be a class monitor, so she said it out when the teacher asked if anyone wants to be a class monitor. And now she did it because she had advocated herself to speak out. The last point is turn negative stereotype into positive switch. Stigmas against successful women being too assertive or pushy do exist. However, to smash through the glass ceiling, it's important not to let this negative connotation hold you back. Host says, this can mean recognizing attributes that have typically been seen as weakness as strength. I have realized that one of my greatest qualities is being stubborn. Stubbornness is often framed as a negative trait, but for me, stubbornness has really helped me to sit through the discomfort and move through to the other side, believing that if you keep working at it, something will change. That is the end of my part, so I will give the floor to Darabati. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Richard, for give me a flow. So let's continue to my part is about sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is an unwelcome sexual behavior that often feels humiliating and intimidating. It can be written, verbal, and physical. And it also can happen in person or online. Anybody can experience sexual harassment, and it takes place anywhere at work, university, on the street, in the shop, at the club while using public transportation, at the airport, even at the home. Basically, it is not unwelcome sexual attention that can take place in any public place, but it is also in a private space. Sexual harassment may amount to a form of discrimination, and sexual harassment can include someone by touching, grabbing, and making other physical contact with you without your consent, asking you for sex or sexual favor, uh, name calling such a big or slut, staring in the offensive way, like staring at the woman, and so some sexual gesture or suggestive body movement that make the woman or man feel uncomfortable, and stalking a person, touch, touching oneself sexually for other to view, and the last one is rape. So let's move on to my next part. Is about my only one question is, do only men harass women? My answer is no. Women can also harass men as well. Men can sexually harass other men, and women can sexually harass other women as well. There is no gender bias in harasser, but most of the time there are men who harass a woman. That's it for my point.
Um, Thank you, Darabatai, for giving me the floor. Hello, teacher, and hello, everyone. So, my name is Vantai. My part today is going to talk about the gender and violence. So, the question is, what is violence against women? So, according to Australia government.edu, violence against women is defined as any act of gender-based violence that is likely to result in physical, psychological harm, or suffering to women, whether it's occurring in private or public. Actually, there are so many types of gender-based violence, but since I don't have enough time, so I will only raise some points to do the presentation. First of all, you might wonder what does it mean. So, forcible rape is generally defined as the violence to commit rape by force. Based on the textbook, forcible rape is the most serious crime and fear for U.S. women. One of every 1,000 U.S. girls and women between the age of 12 and 50 is raped every year. Any woman can be a victim of sexual assault, including babies and old women, but the typical victim is between the age of 16 to 19 years old. Women's most common fear are from strangers who appear from nowhere, beat and rape them. Sometimes come from using a dangerous weapon or something that the victims believe to be dangerous. Next is date rape. From what I have researched on Google, the majority of women who reported being raped says that they knew their rapist. So we can define the date rape to sexual assault by a person involved in a romantic relationship with the victim. Most of all, the girls who are raped tell a friend what happened, but only 5% reported to the police. The most common reason for not reporting was thinking that the event wasn't serious enough, and some women were embarrassed and didn't want other people, especially their family, to know. So let's move to the next point, which is murder. All over the world, men are more likely than women to be killers. The killing of women and girls at the hands of intimate partner or other family members, people whom they would normally be expected to trust, represent one of the most extreme shows of gender-based violence. Um, Next is violence in the house, which can also be called domestic abuse. These acts of violence occur between people who have or have had an intimate relationship. This kind of violence shows the behavior of controlling the partner through fears, for example, by using the behavior which is violent and threatening, including slap, punch on the face, throwing things around, or cursing each other. Um, let's move to the next point, which is feminism and gender violence. Sociology have been especially brought violence against women to the public attentions. According to conflict theory, for example, when a husband accused with his wife, he tends to use the violence over his wife. Because he wants to let other people know that he has the power over his wife, he can control his wife, as well as he want other people to know that he doesn't afraid of his wife. Um, so there are some causes of violence against women, such as men cannot control their anger, or sometimes when men drink a lot of alcohol, he tends to use the violence over the woman. Last but not least, there are some solutions to decrease the cases of violence against women. This would be This would require an education program in school or maybe advertisements on social media. To sum up, the victims of rape and murder are females. Honor killing are especially as the special cases of violence against females, as well as the conflict theory points out that men use the violence to maintain their power and privilege. So that's the end of my part. I will give the floor to my friends to continue from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tay. So I'll be covering the third part, the changing face of politics. Next slide. So what is gender inequality? As Panyapek already mentioned above, I'll be more into it. So gender inequality is so different from other type of inequality that we cannot implicitly assume that it follows the same path as other inequality. Gender inequality occurs when men or women disproportionately enjoy valuable assets such as political power and longevity. And gender inequality intersects with other types of inequality such as education, economics, politics, and etc. And because of men and women can differ in many areas, women can catch up with men in some area and lag even further in other. And reducing inequality means that men gain an advantage over women, and these characteristics of gender inequality means that it is important to examine that area of the gender inequality is separately. And another important issue is representation. Gender norms undermine the role of women in public life and lead to resistance to women political leadership. Norms that keep women out of politics shapes how people vote for them and how women should spend their times and conduct themselves, and impose substantial restriction on their participation in public and political life. And also, another research has shown that the more representative a government presents society as a whole, the more it likely to be a stable and peaceful country. And similarly, some data also suggests that women are more likely than men to be involved in politics that affect women. Even in the absence of feminist agenda, although the data in this area are somehow boring, it remains uncertain and are exceptions, and more research is needed. So, to be more clear, I would like to point out some of the women that are in the politics. So first one is Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, in 2002, she was the first woman to be elected by her college as a minority leader of a House representative. And in 5 years later, in 2007, she also chosen to be a first female Speaker of the House. So by this post, she was the most powerful woman ever in Congress. And also in 2008, Hillary Clinton became the first presidential nominee of Democratic Party. This means that she ran for a president in 2008 that are connected to politics. And also the same year as that, Sarah Palin was also chosen to be a Republican vice presidential candidate. And these three women show how powerful they are, like Nancy Pelosi as a leader and Hillary Clinton as a run as a president. And this show how strong when women join politics. Let's move on to next part. let's jump into the fourth part, glimpsing the future with hope. So I'll be mentioning about gender roles and stereotypes. So gender roles are stereotypes regarding to attitude, attributes, and action that impose on men and women based on their gender. And this kind of preconceptions are usually harmful to society. Yet its understanding on what they are and their history are crucial to overcoming them. And if we look back to the Victorian era, it was comprised most of the 19th century. It was characterized by strong idea regarding the role of each gender in society. Mostly men were expected to be present themselves more than women in public spheres such as politics and business. And women are only expected to stay at home and taking care of private sphere, like taking care of the cooking, house, household, and looking after their children. And to mention more clearly about gender role and stereotype, I would like to mention some of example like woman in the kitchen. When they hear that the word woman in the kitchen, women would think that it was the common and hurtful stereotype for them because they should be the one taking care of the cooking. And for example, when their husband go out to work for the business, and women are expected to stay in the kitchen making food for them, to welcoming their husband back with food for dinners and like that. And to change the perspective of the mindset, women has the right, if there is gender equality, women have the right to choose whether they wanted to stay at home or they can go work like men as well, because they have the same strength like each other. And if there is gender equality, men and women are expected to stay in both in kitchens, looking after their children or doing housework. And for work and aspiration, men are often expected to do to acquire hard and public job. By hard and public job, it's like doing the hard things and that women are that they think that women could not do. While women are thought as only being more suited for nurturing jobs like such as jobs are low and are easy. And for example, people might think that men are prefer only for pilots or doctor or policemen, while women are expected to be nurse or teacher. And for the example, if we change the mindset of view, women and men are the same. If there is gender equality, women can also be pilots or doctor or policewomen like men as well. And if you look into the second picture, these are the data that shows the number from before, from the past and now. Like the first one, it was the percentage of the students who are in college that are women. By before in 1970, the percentage is 42%, and now is 57%. It increased year by year. And the second one, back then in 1970, only 1%, and now 45% for the dental school graduate who are women. And the third one, which are in the medical school who graduate as a woman in 1970, they are 8%, and now 49%. And this is and other is also increasing year by year. So in this gender role and stereotype, it means that if there is gender equality, women and men have the same right to do the same job as other. And if for For example, if I want to change the mindset of you for my children in the future, I would set them free. If I have a daughter, I would set them free to play any toys such as boy toys. And if I have a son, I would set them free to be playing with girl toys as well. So the gender equality will be set free for them. And it's all for my part. And to recap on all above, the first one we are talking about the gender inequality in the workplace, and the second one we are talking about gender and violence, and third one the changing face to politics, and fourth one is glimpsing the future with hope. I think that's all for us. Thank you, and thank you for the listening. And this is the reference we got from for our slide. Thank you for your listening. Chào thầy.
Yeah.
Oh.